Thank you for joining again as we recognize women and groups of women during Women's History Month. As a reminder, email me at info@drbettimb.com if you'd like to be a part of my book launch next Sunday, March 28th at 6 p.m. East Coast time. I'd love for you to listen as I share an excerpt of my newly published book, Leadership Lessons, Personal Reflections from a Woman Marine. This week, I thought I'd share some not often written items of one of my SHE-roes, Eleanor Roosevelt. In April 1946, she became chair of the United Nations Commission on Human Rights and took on the task of drafting a human rights declaration for the world. Yes, she was the wife of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, but as First Lady, she traveled across the United States and world, acting as her husband's eyes and ears and reporting back to him after she visited government institutions, programs, and numerous other facilities. She was an early champion of civil rights for African Americans, as well as an advocate for American workers, the poor, young people, and women during the Great Depression. When I was on a fellowship earlier in my federal government career, I remember sitting at an event where there was a character actress who portrayed Eleanor Roosevelt. It was like sitting with Mrs. Roosevelt for tea. I was inspired from that moment on to find out all I could about this visionary leader. Like, did you know that for 3 decades, educator and civil rights activist Mary McLeod Bethune, often called the First Lady of the Struggle, forged an unlikely friendship with this First Lady, Eleanor Roosevelt. Bethune became a trusted advisor to both Mrs. Roosevelt and the President, and played a key role in shaping government policies for African Americans in the 1930s and 40s. Did you know in March of 1941, First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt hopped in the back of C. Alfred Anderson's plane at the Tuskegee Army Airfield in Alabama and went for a flight? Okay, it wasn't that casual. The event actually was a pretty big deal across the world because Anderson was African American. Mrs. Roosevelt single-handedly opened minds, truths, and hearts about the all African American aviators, the Tuskegee Airmen. Did you know that there is a plethora of wise quotes from this First Lady? Here are 3 of my favorites. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, small minds discuss people. With the new day comes new strength and new thoughts. I love those quotes. Her stature, her humbleness, and her vision inspired me so much that I visited her home in New York called Valkill Cottage. She said, "Valkill is where I used to find myself and grow. At Valkill, I emerged as an individual." End quote. The peaceful streams, the diverse foliage, the architectural simplicity. As I walked through that area where this giant sat and stood and walked, I felt closer to her than I ever felt before. It was an honor to be where Mrs. Roosevelt was. There's so much more to know about Eleanor Roosevelt. I encourage you to also dive deeply into her lessons. Just visit womenshistory.org. It's been a joy sharing these videos with you every Sunday. Next Sunday, join me as I open the pages of my new book. Just email me at info@drbettimb.com. Until we meet again, with intention.